Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Thoth, Gods of the Duat, by Alessa Thorn. Narrated by Sinclair. Prologue. Long ago, before Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, separated and started creating gods, Thoth, god of wisdom and magic, got impatient with the pace of creation. He wasn't about to wait for other gods to get themselves organized. He decided that if you wanted something done, you had to do it yourself. So he sung himself into being. Self-begotten and quickly bored, Thoth tried to speed creation up. He complained to Nut, imploring her to make gods for him to talk to. Nut lamented that she had been sterile for 360 days, so once again, Thoth took things into his own clever hands. Thoth gambled with the moon and won 5 extra days in the year in which Nut and Geb could get busy. In that time, Set, Osiris, Nephthys, and Isis were born. The 4 gods always wanted to know how Thoth had managed to create himself and harassed him regularly for the secrets he possessed. They even went so far as to complain to the Duat about it. The Duat, 8 primeval gods of the chaos before creation, sent them away to figure it out on their own. Thoth liked secrets, especially ones that involved him being cleverer than the rest of the argumentative god-children. He didn't feel like he owed them any answers, since it was his bet with the moon that created the 4 squabbling gods in the first place. They hadn't even thanked him for creating the 365-day calendar at the same time, which showed that even gods needed to learn a thing or two about gratitude. The gods never forgot that Thoth knew secrets of the universe they didn't, and they resented it. The moon never forgot how Thoth had cheated her out of another 5 days, and she resented it. Thoth knew that they resented him, and he couldn't have cared less. Chapter 1. 13 years ago. Kema had always been the fastest runner of all the orphans raised at St. Catherine's Home for Lost Children. Even at the age of 15, she was as swift as a gazelle and was proving it by running away from her wedding. The veil stuck to sweaty skin as she tore out of the cathedral and through the streets of downtown Alexandria. She heard voices shouting behind her, knew her intended, Ibrahim, had people coming after her and wasn't about to slow down to look. She ran until she hit the green gardens of Al-Shalalat. "Kema, stop!" a voice shouted as she crashed her way through a group of university students. Kema didn't slow, even though her ribs were aching and she wanted to throw up. She ripped the veil from her head, freeing her face and vision. People complained in alarm as she tried to duck down amongst the groups of tourists heading towards the bibliotheca. Need somewhere to hide, she thought, scanning her options. Kema would have prayed to Catherine if she believed that the saint would help, but she had prayed for 2 weeks now to be saved from an unwanted arranged marriage. Catherine had been too busy to answer her prayers, so Kema was taking her salvation into her own hands. Kema rounded a sharp corner, and something bronze flashed in the sunlight. There was a single door tucked in between stalls of flowers sellers and street food vendors. It was lapis lazuli blue, with bright bronze hieroglyphs painted around its frame. Kema ran for it, shoving the stiff door open and stumbling into the darkness. The scent of paper and dust filled the air, and as her eyes adjusted, Kema realized she was in an old bookshop. It was empty and quiet, so she crept around the stacks, looking for somewhere to hide. The front door banged open, and low, masculine voices broke the hushed silence. Kema didn't hesitate. She dove behind the counter and tucked herself up in the small space under it, next to a stack of books. Beautiful books, Kema noticed, the top volume catching the light. She lifted it, staring wide-eyed at the gold and tiny jewels inlaid into the cover. It was more wealth than she had ever seen in her life. What kind of bookshop was this? Kema touched the tiny gems, the mesmerizing patterns, her mind ticking. She didn't only have the fastest feet in the orphanage, but also the fastest hands. She would often walk the markets, stealing fruit and sweets from vendors to give to the younger children. It was a game. Staring at the jewel-encrusted book in her hands, it no longer felt like a game. It felt like a ticket to her freedom. Kema was aging out at the orphanage, which was why the wedding had been arranged. Be a good, obedient wife, and your husband would take care of you. That would have been a fine plan if Kema had been good or obedient. She stuffed the book down the front of her dress. "Excuse me, gentlemen, the shop is closed," a deep voice said. The owner of the voice stepped out of a back room. He was tall and lean, dressed in a casual button-down shirt, and had vibrant tattoos up one arm. His bronze-colored eyes spotted Kema under the counter, and she instantly put a finger to her lips. "Your front door was open. We are looking for someone who came in here," one man answered. He was a friend of Ibrahim, but Kema couldn't remember his name. "Someone? Who? Can you describe them?" the owner asked. "A woman, dressed like a bride, plain but with a pretty smile." The owner lifted a quizzical brow. "Sounds like she's not interested in getting married today." "She's only a little nervous. She's young and has been brought up in a convent. She loves her intended very much." Kema shook her head, eyes wide and pleading at the stranger to not give her up. Pissed-off annoyance flashed in his bronze gaze before it vanished. "Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for her, but I can assure you she's not in here," he said, moving around the counter and out of sight. "Let me show you and your friends out." Kema held her breath until the footsteps faded. She scrambled out of her hiding place and out the back door. The stolen book burned like a secret next to her heart as she disappeared into the darkening streets of Alexandria. 13 years later, the day of Kema's failed wedding still haunted her. Not out of regret for not becoming a married woman, but for stealing that damned book. Said book gleamed in the morning sun that was coming through her bedroom window. The same window she had tossed it out of the night before, just for the hell of it. That was the problem with the beautiful book. It was cursed. The day Kema had stolen it, she had gone straight to the local markets and sold it to an antique dealer, spinning a story to them that she needed the money for her dowry. Kema had used the money to buy some clothes and rent a cheap room in a student boarding house. The following day, she had woken up, and the book had been on the small mattress beside her. In the years since, Kema had sold the book 11 times, tossed it into the ocean 32 times, burned it to ashes 18 times, and every morning she woke, and the book was back. Kema had tried to read it every day as well, without any luck. It wasn't written in any recognizable language. She had shown professors over the years, who had always said that it was a made-up script of some bored scholar. Kema liked the drawings in it the most. They were multiple complex illustrations of shapes and diagrams of fantastical machines. None of them had made sense to the engineers or mathematicians she had shown the book to either. They had said that whoever had written it didn't understand physics, and so it was probably the journal of a crazy Egyptian mystic trying to be Leonardo da Vinci. There was no argument that the book was old, and it was a mystery. It was also, without a doubt, magical. Kema was old enough to remember when the Greek gods came out, so she knew that some form of magic existed. She just never expected to find herself in possession of a magical object. The constant returning of the book wasn't the only thing that made it magical. It was just the first. The second thing was that when Kema had tried to find the bookshop to return it to the handsome and equally mysterious owner, the shop no longer existed. According to the businesses in the area, it never had. It pissed Kema off because she wanted to learn more about magic and he seemed the best person to help her. She had searched for other books like hers over the years and had found nothing. Every time she hunted down other people claiming to be magic users, she ended up disappointed. The third thing was that when she had drawn a set of cards using the illustrations from the book as guides, the cards gave spookily accurate and not always nice readings to her customers. "You're a mixed blessing, to be sure," Kema muttered, climbing out of bed and shoving the book into the drawer of her dresser. She had stopped trying to sell it, unless she really needed the money. But her stall at the Shalalet Gardens always made what she needed to get by. Tourists were good marks, and she was happy to relieve them of their pounds, euros, dollars, and drachmas. Her card readings had been exceptionally popular of late, and it ensured that she kept out of the slums that one day longer. Kema downed a coffee and stuffed a day-old baklava into her mouth for breakfast. Growing up in a strict orphanage meant that once she could afford to eat what she liked, she had developed both a hopeless sweet tooth and the generous curves to match. Always considered too tall and skinny as a teenager, Kema loved her body and was absolutely unapologetic about her love of food. Kema was unapologetic about everything. It was a warm spring day, the kind that brought out lots of people, and the Shalalat Gardens were already filling with tourists, families, and students. The market stalls were set up in the eastern corner of the gardens. She greeted the people selling jewelry and tourist trinkets. She quickly retrieved her gear from the back of the grocery market. It could be locked up, so Kema rented some space for her equipment to avoid dragging it in, then home again every morning and night. In her usual place between street food vendors, Kema constructed her burgundy and brown striped tent. Inside, she lit incense, lamps, and candles and rolled out her mats. With that done, she set about turning herself from Kema to Madame Heka, queen of the mystical arts, communer of the dead, fortune-teller and mouthpiece to Alexander the Great. Some believed that Alexander's tomb rested beneath Shalalet Gardens, and in a moment of brilliance, Kema had decided that channeling the conqueror was the edge to her act that she had been looking for. Kema put on a crown of golden laurel leaves and pinned her hair up. She stripped off her streetwear for a chiton and wrapped a gaudy golden belt around her waist. Her outfit might have been Greek, but her makeup was Egyptian. She applied golden eyeshadow and drew on heavy black eyeliner, stretching it out at the corners, before she drew an iconic swirl under her left eye, turning it into a magical eye of Thoth. Kema grinned at her reflection before summoning her sultry and mysterious Madame Heka face. Digging about in her bag, Kema found her deck of cards. They were badly painted and foxed around the edges, But even with her not-so-steady hand, the symbols she had copied from the book seemed to draw the eye. Giving them a quick shuffle, she felt a rush of excitement and warmth tingle through her fingers. As Kema stepped outside her tent, an awareness swept up her spine. She looked around at the growing crowd of tourists and shoppers, unsure of what her intuition was warning her about. She saw a flash of bronze in the corner of her eye, but it was gone so quickly, Kema thought she imagined it. Kema shook off the feeling, turned to the curious onlookers, shuffled her cards one-handed for show, and got ready to tell some fortunes. Chapter 2. Thoth sipped on a cup of black coffee and squinted at the sun. He didn't do mornings as a rule. He was a moon god for a reason, but the booksellers were only at the markets on Tuesdays, and everything good was usually gone by lunchtime. Thoth had spent most of the night in Alessa City, chasing down a restless ghost that had somehow escaped the Duat. Like I don't have better things to do with my time, Thoth grumbled to himself, having another mouthful of coffee. This sort of shit wouldn't be happening at all if Anubis were still in the Duat. A soul wouldn't dare try and escape him, and if they did, Anubis would hunt it down, bind it in fiery chains, and drag it back to where it belonged. Thoth had been trying to find the god of the dead for centuries, with no luck. Now he had Set and his consort, Ayla, to help him, but he couldn't decide if that was going to be a good thing or not. Thoth had promised them a month of peace for Ayla to get used to sharing Set's god power. That month was almost up. Thoth was in equal parts relieved and reluctant to have Set helping him. Relieved that he wouldn't be searching alone anymore, and reluctant because Thoth didn't work well with others. It certainly can't make things worse. Thoth prided himself on conquering any challenge presented to him, and the fact he hadn't been able to find Anubis grated on his nerves. Now, he must have the god of war help him. The only plus side of the embarrassing business was that Set and Ayla's lives depended on finding Anubis within a year. They were adequately motivated and wouldn't screw about. Set would search through every grain of sand in Egypt if it meant keeping Ayla safe. His devotion to her was absolute and made Thoth want to gag. Love was for children, and if Set was dumb enough to believe in it still, that was his problem. If it kept him focused on the task of finding their nephew, then Thoth really didn't care about his reasons for helping. The Shalalat Gardens were filling up with people already, and Thoth groaned internally. He didn't do crowds or people unless he had to. Unfortunately, his weekly trip to the markets was a necessary evil. Finding wayward souls wasn't the only irritation Thoth had those days. He was constantly having to go out and clean up magical messes. Everything from rogue Ifrits setting houses on fire to El Nadahas trying to lure people to their watery deaths in the Nile was keeping Thoth obscenely busy. And he knew his lost book was to blame. That fucking thief. Thoth had cursed the damn bride every day since he realized she had stolen from him. He had done his first good deed in centuries by not turning her in, and how did she repay him? By stealing his damn journal. Over a decade later, it still grated on Thoth that he had fallen for those big, pleading brown eyes. Deep down, he knew that she had just been a scared girl, but he had stopped thinking of her that way when magic started happening around the city. His magic, to be precise. The girl bride had obviously sold his book off, and some petty sorcerer was trying to use the incantations inside of it. When he got his hands on the girl and the sorcerer, he was going to wring their damn necks. Thoth was surprised the sorcerer had managed to get the magic to work at all. It defied belief, but there was no denying his magic was being used to rip holes in reality and let through all kinds of chaos. Thoth wandered through the rows of booksellers, searching for anything of interest. Occasionally, something would give a faint buzz of magic, and he would dig out treatises written by ancient Sufis, pagan priests, and Christian mystics. Humans search for magic, and the miraculous never ceased to surprise him, and it was one of the few things that kept him interested after centuries of wandering the world. Thoth was buying another coffee when he felt a flick of his own magic whip across the gardens. Thoth stumbled, almost dropping the pile of books he was carrying. What in all the hells was that? Thoth whispered a tracking spell under his breath, and traces of bronze magic lingered in the air like smoke. "Got you," he growled, and strode through the gardens following the trail. Pushing his way through performers and food sellers, Thoth found himself on the edge of a line leading to a dark red tent. Bronze glittered in the air around the tent like fog. Thoth looked at the gold and red sign and almost spontaneously combusted. Madam Heka, spiritual advisor and fortune teller. My sister saw her a month ago, and she channeled the ghost of Alexander. He told her that her husband was cheating on her, and the exact location of the letters proving it, a woman said to her friend in the line in front of him. This is the third time I've seen her, and Alexander's advice is always right, a man in a suit agreed with her. Thoth's vision hazed as a smiling woman came out of the tent. She kissed the cheeks of another woman wearing a gold laurel headpiece. Thoth's ichor turned to fire as the fortune teller turned and he saw her face. She was older and had filled out, but there was no doubt that it was the damn girl bride. I won't be long, my dear ones, she told the line and disappeared back into the tent. Thoth ignored the grumbles of the people that he pushed through and stepped into the tent. The fortune-teller's back was to him as she fixed her hair and sipped from a water bottle. Take a seat. I won't be long, she said without turning. Thoth sat on the soft rug in front of a small board covered with silk, a pile of cards in the center of it. He lifted one, instantly recognizing one of his own diagrams of the fabric of the ether. Rage and confusion raced through him. The fortune-teller turned, saw who was waiting for her, and let out a surprised gasp. Her brown eyes were still big and full of warmth. Thoth looked at her left eye and tried to hide his surprise at seeing his mark on her. Madam Heka, I presume, he said through his teeth. It's you, she replied, rushing forward, heedless of the danger she was in. I've been looking everywhere for you. Why? So you could steal from me again after I saved you? He demanded. All his years of frustration rushed to the surface and collided with his burning embarrassment. He had thought that he would face a sorcerer at least, not some charlatan turning tricks in the park. Bronze power glittered around Thoth's arms, his tattoo shimmering with life. The fortune-teller's mouth popped open as she stared at him. Thoth's god aspect rose to the surface, eyes glowing and magic threatening to break loose. Do you know what we do to people like you in the Duat, thief? He demanded, his voice turning unearthly. The pretty fortune-teller had the audacity to smile at him, right before she kicked out a wooden pole and ran as the tent collapsed around him. Chapter 3. Kema hadn't needed to run for her life in years, but she ran now. The bookshop owner had found her. He was so pissed, he glowed. He has to be some kind of sorcerer. The strangeness of the indestructible book was starting to make sense. A book that you stole, Kema's mind reminded her, and she ran faster. The sorcerer had found her, and despite her curiosity about him, she had bolted. He looked like he was about to kill her, and she wasn't dealing with that today. "You think you can run from me, thief?" His voice boomed through the surrounding trees, making Kema stumble. The golden sandals she was wearing looked great, but they had no grip on them. Kema dashed out of the park, wove through traffic, and slipped down a side street. The air grew hot and thick around her, and Kema slid to a stop as the alleyway in front of her seemed to tear open. She glimpsed a landscape of desert sand and red sky before a creature made of black smoke and glittering embers ripped the hole in the sky open and dragged its way through. "This isn't real," she said, too afraid to move. Had she been hit by a car and not realized? The creature laughed with multiple fanged mouths and raced towards her. Something heavy slammed into Kema from behind, and she hit the street hard. The smell of warm spice, incense, and man surrounded her as the sorcerer pinned her to the ground underneath him. Pure wrath had twisted his lean, handsome face into something feral and dangerous. "Stay the fuck down," he snarled. Kema was too scared to do anything but stare at the man above her. Glittering bronze light rose from his skin, filling his eyes and wrapping around his hands. The creature hissed something at him, and he responded in its own language. All the hairs on Kema's body rose, and she wanted to clamp her hands over her ears. The creature screeched, and bronze streaked through the air like a whip, striking the monster in the chest and turning it to dust. The man above her chanted something under his breath, and the hole to the other world closed, the awful landscape vanishing. Bronze eyes turned towards her, and Kema squirmed beneath his weight. "What the fuck was that?" she demanded, her voice coming out in a slightly hysterical pitch. "That was a demon," he replied. Kema went to move, but he brought his forearm across her chest, pushing her back down. "I think it's time you and I go somewhere for a little chat, thief." "I don't like your tone. Get off me before I scream." "Scream all you want." The sorcerer's lip curled in amusement before he was off her and dragging her to her feet. Kema brushed at the dirty marks staining her dress. "Where did that thing come from?" "Somewhere else. I should have let it kill you and serve you right," her reluctant rescuer said, staring down his nose at her. "Serve me right? For what?" "For letting the damn thing in to begin with." Kema laughed. "What are you even talking about? Don't let the costume fool you. I don't have any magic." The sorcerer held up one of her cards. The same card she had drawn for her last customer. "I don't understand what my cards have to do with anything," she began. "You will," he replied. He crushed the card with his hand and grabbed her wrist with the other. Kema tried pulling her hand back, but his grip only tightened. The air grew sultry again, and another tear appeared in the alley beside them. This time, there weren't any desert sands or red sky. It looked like a messy office. "Let me go!" she demanded. The stranger ignored her, dragging her through the opening. Kema yanked her hand free, but as she turned to escape, the alley vanished and she crashed into an overstuffed bookshelf. She swore foully before rounding on him. "I demand you let me out of here at once. This is kidnapping, you know," she hissed, poking the sorcerer hard in the chest. He gave her a look somewhere between contempt and amusement. "Like I care," he said, and walked out of the office. Kema hesitated for a whole 2 seconds before she hurried after him.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?